Thank you for watching this video interview recorded for the Impact Leaders podcast, featuring leaders focusing on sustainable and impact investment and performance with purpose, sharing stories, experiences, and advice to increase awareness in the market and highlight best practices in order to help more people, companies, and institutions transition more capital into the industry faster. I'm JP Dallmann, founder and CEO of ILA & Partners. I usually interview and feature a specific leader in the industry, but on this occasion I'm being interviewed by my dear friend Emilie West. This special lockdown series was inspired by listeners asking for more information about some of the fundamentals and trends. So we created this set of 5 shorter episodes for people wanting to use their extra time in learning something valuable during the extended lockdown period. So I am very grateful if you are choosing to invest your time in watching and listening, since I know that you are going to feel encouraged and inspired. Make sure you subscribe and get the notifications from YouTube and your preferred podcast platform. And do follow us on social media to stay connected. I appreciate your support. It helps us to keep going. Enjoy this video.
So JP, we want to tap this amazing knowledge that you've got through running your own podcast and all your fantastic experience. I'm going to start with just a really super simple question, because a lot of people will be totally new to the world of impact investing. They want to make some kind of difference. What is an impact investment? What is a sustainable investment?
Okay, so to try to keep it simple at this stage, let's think about it as sustainable investing is the overarching concept, which includes what is called ESG, environmental, social, and governance criteria when you make investment decisions. And then within that, you could say that there are different strategies and different concepts, and impact investing is one of them, which is where you can actually measure the impact they're having in society and environment.
So the impact is much more specific. There's a specific impact, and then you're measuring whether it's achieving that or not.
Yes. So I think to use an example, potentially, if you are one that large that people take is, let's say, microfinance. So there are some kind of impact investing funds or impact investment funds that are specialized on microfinance, which is supporting very small loans, to individuals in, let's say, places like Africa or South America, so that they can, run their, again, inverted commas, businesses. But many of these cases are just basically one individual. And then they can exactly measure, how they pay back, what results they had as, part of the company. Because when they actually give the loan, it's not just the loan; they do education. It's quite a complex matrix of what they do to support these individuals, which obviously in places where access to financing is very, very difficult.
So if a large firm, an investment firm, says they have a sustainable investment fund or an impact investment fund, is there some criteria they have to comply with to be able to say that about the investment?
Yes. So there are many ways to go about it. So you can use again, the different strategies to start with, and let's say, to simplify as well, you can have like an exclusionary strategy where you say that you don't invest in certain type of sectors, let's say, for example, fossil fuels or gaming. There are inclusionary strategies where you specifically pick certain sectors that make you show that you are contributing to sustainability, let's say electric vehicles. And then there is impact investing, which is what I just explained. So that would be a first way to say, this is what we're doing. And some people talk about kind of building your ESG, building ESG and building sustainability within your investment processes, and that's another way that you can show. And obviously, part of that, many times, it makes you be able to show that you are kind of ESG compliant, right? So that's one way to look at it. Obviously, there's other ways, which are, the way that you report the organizations that you can join, like the PRI, which is the Principle for Responsible Investing, which is a UN organization that was founded in 2006. And then for that, then you have to report according to, their criteria and their requirements. And then obviously that gives you another way to show to your investors that you are doing the right things.
So what's been the impact then of COVID and lockdown? Have you seen a change in the level of interest in impact investing? And what do you think it's going to mean for impact investing going forward?
Yes. So there's different ways to answer that question. And let's say if we just talk about just the market, for example, and how everything that happened in the market affected these companies that are more known, or these funds that are more known on the ESG, using ESG as a strategy. Actually, there are really good reports that show that they have been a lot more resilient, and they have, let's say, lost a lot less value than normal. Let's say on the public equities side, for example, and we can talk about different type of assets, which is another conversation. On the public equity side, they have performed better or less worse in another way, and that it just goes to show, that they, in a way, it's a reflection of how investing in sustainable investing, it makes financial sense in a way. I think it comes to reinforce that. That's on the very short term, immediate term. Then maybe on the middle and long term, I would say that, again, from the conversations I'm having, nobody really that is in the industry has stopped. If anything, everything seems to continue as is, and if no, kind of with more attention and enhanced, because people actually are having a lot more awareness of what is happening. As simple maybe as it sounds, the whole point about showing pictures of how the world has changed and looked so much better now that we have stopped flying and traveling, etc. People, if people were not convinced about climate change and the effect that we have in it, I think that people kind of had a bit more of an understanding and believe a bit more in it. Actually, I share on LinkedIn, I think about a day or 2 days ago, one of the reports, surveys that have been run, and how it shows by country how over 50% of people now do believe that the crisis, the climate change crisis, is much bigger, much more important than COVID-19 specifically, for example. So, and then long term, I mean, nothing changes in my mind, and obviously, in terms of what was happening and what will continue to happen, which is the attention, the intention, and the actions of asset owners and the market overall, and the allocation of funds into sustainable investing will continue to grow, because this is what we need to do to be able to create a sustainable future.
Yeah, so there'll be that increase in demand for those investments. Obviously, people who are already involved in investing and are in the investment community, they'll be much more aware about this. What about people who don't have awareness, have, just like you said, just become much more aware about the impact of our actions on the climate, and maybe they feel like they've reflected in this time and they feel like they want to make a difference? How can an individual who doesn't have a big portfolio, how can they make a difference?
Yeah, I think it's interesting, because I like the idea of thinking about all the different stakeholders, and I sometimes, to simplify as well, I try to talk about the simplicity of the supply chain of sustainable living and sustainable investing, right? So you can almost separate it into that simply as an individual sustainable living, and I think that, again, where we live in the UK, there's all these different reports where people talk about how they understand about, looking after the food they consume, what they throw away. So that's the most basic, level of action. Like we are, consumerism is effectively, I think, almost a disease. and it creates a lot of byproducts and waste, and then people kind of, a lot of people don't realize. And I think that just changing the way you live and the way that you are, efficient in the way that you live, how much you travel, how you travel, what you consume. Let's not even talk about recycling, but how many times you use Amazon. There are so many things. Again, the list goes on and on. But that would be I think the most basic part. Is behavior. And I thought about this as well. There's different ways of education. It's another way. So just getting yourself, especially in this time of lockdown, people are consuming all sorts of content. Maybe even if you are addicted to Netflix right now, you can go in Netflix and watch some of the incredible documentaries that are out there, which make you realize and gives you a bit more of a perspective of what's happening in the world. And maybe I take time to recommend a couple I was thinking about. So obviously, the Blue Planet 2, Our Planet, all of these David Attenborough documentaries, if you like nature, they're amazing because it makes you realize what we have, place to live in the world. Then there are others, which is, for example, one called Water Health, which I really like, which makes you realize around what you're eating and how the system has grown to make you realize what to eat, what not to eat. That's but also the effect that has in carbon emissions. And then two more I like, which is one is called Rotten, which shows you the different industries and how complicated they are. Let's say one of them is just water, which is very interesting, and plastic bottles. And then obviously they give you a real good example there with a company called Nestle, which most people know and a lot of people invest in. And then lastly, I think this one should be more entertaining perhaps for many, which is called Dirty Money, which I think is very good as well. It makes you realize some of the other things around, for example, governance and how companies operate, which I think is really interesting. So actions, behavior, education, and then potentially, as you can do it online, or maybe once the lockdown is finished, it would be a matter of just getting involved more with community, and actually putting your hands on to try to help with the project, locally. And then obviously then you can finance, and then obviously if you go up in the scale in terms of if you have money available, if you have your savings, or if you're a high net worth individual, the level of the things that you can do changes, right? Mm-hmm. Through foundations or through then your investments, or and then one more thing which is very important, which is if you have time now, is understand what if you have a pension. And you have savings in your pension, if you are that part of a society and you're lucky, just go and understand what your pension is doing about this. Most of them now have I would say most, if not all, have at least a sustainability investment statement, but not all of them are real kind of sustainable investor. I would challenge. So understanding where they invest, even just sending a letter, asking for the questions, small things like that, start raising the interest and putting the pressure, I think.
So you can, even if you're not a direct investor, if you've got a pension, you can still write to your pension provider and ask them for how sustainable the fund is and what their sustainability policy is. And we all know that it's, consumer pressure is one of the biggest drivers of change. So if people don't invest in and don't buy products that aren't sustainable, that's really what moves the dial on this.
Yes. So it's interesting. So, and this is a very good point. So actions, just changing your behaviors, etc., has an effect. But, there have been a couple of studies that show, there is one which I think I mentioned a couple of times, which is a Nordics, a bank. It shows that if you put your investments into sustainable investing, you are, and obviously there's technicalities to this, but you are likely to have, I think it was like 17 times more impact let's say just on the CO2 emissions, of the companies you invest in, versus if you try to, let's say, drive an electric car. So it's unbelievable, how much, because everything is being funded, by, largely, pension funds and other asset owners, insurance companies, etc. So if that's where we need to put, the pressure, and we need to request, the change of the behavior.
Yeah, and it's like you said, you can have so much impact because there's so much power with money, and you might be really trying to buy sustainably and recycle and everything, but have you thought about where your money's invested, and that actually might have a way bigger impact? And if someone has that realization and goes, oh, okay, I really want to vote with my feet, I want to move all my investments somewhere sustainable, how do they find sustainable investments? How do they know that the pension they invest in is sustainable? What should they be looking for?
Again, it gets maybe a bit more complex, but this is all part of, what we need to do. So the first step you can take is ask your pension to give you a detail of where they're investing your money. So, normally you will get a letter and they'll tell you what strategies they're using, but it's hard to see, the actual investments that they have. So you can ask for that detail. Many times now they're starting to have that, available in a more consumable way online. So maybe you'll be able to find it that way. And then if you have sometimes you are, let's say, stuck with a pension fund provider, and you cannot move your money. But if you had the possibility of moving your money, then there are more specific sustainability investors or sustainability-focused investors that you can approach and move the money there.
Is there an online resource where people can look up which funds are sustainable?
One that encompasses all of them, I would say no. There is maybe on the sustainable and ESG. There are different ways to look at it. Maybe on the impact side, there are some other sources where it's a bit easier, again, inverted commas, to see. But there's one big platform that has all of them. I would say no, it's pretty segregated. And there are, I can go on and on about different companies and products that have been launched on different smaller platforms. But also, and this is the interesting thing, where sometimes I find it's the hardest part of, why it takes so much to make a dent and move all of this, is everyone has different preferences, right? So you have to, everyone is a consumer in a way of financial products, and everyone consumes in a different way, right? So there are, for example, apps that are kind of sustainable investing / impact apps that are more catered for the millennials. So, they're trying to reach that demographic. There are, a big private wealth, private banking and wealth management companies that are really targeting the high net worth individuals. And everyone still kind of doing, in my mind, still very much doing their own thing. And then this is interesting part as well. And one of the things about ILA and Partners is that, we're trying to share put the spotlight in some of these companies, so that people know what they're doing. And if there are platforms out there as well, we're trying to make people aware of what people are doing.
Thank you for watching. If you liked this video, please make sure to take an action and share with someone else, so we can create more awareness and understanding of the importance of the subjects together. If you are interested to find the podcast version of the series, you can find the links in the description. And please connect with us at ILA and Partners for advice on how to transition into sustainable and impact investing.